So welcome everybody. This is an IT Cork TechBrew event. Now, our normal format of a TechBrew event is where we have three guests speaking over the hour. We're doing something a little different this time. And this is to showcase our finalists on two IT Cork Leaders Awards categories. So we have the startup finalists and we have the scale-up panelists. So we're going to have two separate panel discussions. So in this, I'm going to introduce, so Larry O'Donoghue is the chair of the startup panel. So Larry, if we can have you on video at this point. Good afternoon, Larry.
Good afternoon, Dana.
Right, so I'm going to hand over to Larry now to introduce the panelists and take up discussion for the next 30 minutes. And then after Larry, then we're going to have the scale-up finalists with another session. Okay, Larry, over to you, and I'll drop off and come back later.
Perfect. Great stuff, Donna. Thanks a million. And just to say at the start, it was a real honor for me to be asked to chair this judging panel for this year's IT Cork Tech Startup of the Year category. And it was also great to see the amount of nominations that came from the region. So it shows that the tech startup landscape in the region is in rude health. And so today we got a great chance to meet the three finalists that came from all of those nominations. And it's also great to see that the finalists are spread across the region, with one of the finalists from based out of Cork, one based out of Kerry, and one based out of Limerick. So that's very encouraging to see as well. And the Tech Startup of the Year, some of the recent winners have gone on to do some pretty impressive things. So we have the likes of Valtteri, who've gone on to raise 11.5 million in Series A funding this year. And they've now gone past over 70 people employed with their base out of Cork. And I think everyone is familiar with WorkVivo, or a past winner of this category as well. And obviously they've gone on to scale at great speed and raised over 15 million in Series A funding recently as well. I'd just like to also say a quick thanks to my fellow judges on the panel, who put in a huge effort over the last number of weeks to bring us to today with our three finalists. So they were Ciara Concannon from Enterprise Ireland and Liam Cronin, the CEO of the RDI Hub. So with that, I'd like to introduce the three panelists. And if you can bring on your the three finalists, you can turn on your videos there, folks. So we have Tim Crow, CEO of Workflow. We have Steve Fleming and Liz McCarthy from Voxify, and we have Ryan Lasmally from Valtteri. So welcome, folks, and congratulations to you all in getting this far. So it's no mean feat to get to the finalists, to get to the top three. And thanks a million for coming along today and taking the opportunity to showcase your company here. So without further ado, we might start off and learn a little bit more about the finalists here today. So maybe Tim, you might kick off first and just let us know a little bit about Workflow, where you've come from, what the product is, the kind of customers and industries that you're working in, and whatever you want to fill us in about Workflow. So thanks, Tim.
Okay, great, Larry. And first of all, I'd like to say it's a great honor to be shortlisted, and we always like an opportunity to talk about Workflow whenever it comes. So really appreciate that. So just a little on my background. Myself and my co-founder set up Workflow in 2019. Prior to that, I worked in Dell, so I would have spent many years designing, installing supply chains and factories around the world and running those. And at the time, we had a significant focus on key metrics like cost, quality, and delivery. And lean tools and methodology worked really well for us, so we were able to have programs underway to drive continuous improvement that yield us a lot of results. And we used to capture data from multiple sources, put it on whiteboards, and review it and drive that improvement. But to bring it to another level at the time, we always wanted to get that data real time. We wanted to get all of these different data sources connected so we could get better insights, but we couldn't do it. But over the last couple of years with the Industry 4.0 and technology, that brought new possibilities. So we set up Workflow to do just that. So we will look at a customer problem, whether it's one machine, whether it's issues with the customer order to delivery and everything in between. We will work with our clients to find the KPIs. Then we will go into every data source to get the data. So that could be an ERP or MES system or machines or equipment. We bring it all together in the cloud, and then we bring it back to the client in a way that they can get value from it. So within 3 clicks or less, they can get down to the root cause of any issue. We use machine learning to predict failures so they can act on them before they happen. So actionable data is of little value unless it's action. So through our platform, we will drive automated accountability. So if a KPI is red, the person that needs to fix it and is accountable for it will get that action. So that's where the real value comes from. And that's why we set up the company, is to really take a SaaS platform and work with our customers to get value from it. We're based in Limerick. We started with 4, or back in 2019, we started with 4. We now have 10. We just opened our office in Mumbai to support customers in our Asia region. We work with pharma, med tech, and manufacturing. And we are just closing an investment round, just signing the legals at the moment for just over 1.1 million. And that gives us a good platform then to scale globally into 2022.
Great stuff, Tim. Thanks for that bit of background there. So maybe Steve and Liz, we might go to yourselves, just give us a bit of background into Voxify and your journey so far.
Thanks, Larry. And just to kind of echo Tim's sentiments, so proud to be here, and having been at a couple of the events before and seen some of the companies that have gone before us, it's a real honor and privilege to be amongst the top 3 here. My background, similar to Tim, is Dell as well, but I've worked in IT for over 20 years, mostly in large multinationals. And through my experience of working in those roles, I realized, according to Gartner, IT spends about $4 trillion a year. And you could think of that in terms of decisions that they make. So IT leaders make $4 trillion worth of decisions every year. And a lot of that is done without great data. So, very often, you're relying on your experience, your time in the business, your knowledge of technology to try and make decisions that often can impact hundreds of thousands of people in a business without any reference necessarily to how those people are going to be directly impacted. And that's a real problem. Sometimes it leads to very expensive projects that don't deliver what they were intended to deliver. So you can waste a lot of time, money, and resources. And very often you can implement systems that just leave the end users alienated. So what we try and do is connect the dots between IT leadership and everyone in the business by gathering feedback from end users on their actual experience of using all of those systems, from laptops, desktops, network, all the way down to ERP systems, HR systems, CRM systems, everything. So we give that full segmented region-specific feedback on what's actually going on with those IT tools based on gathering input from end users. And ultimately then, we use machine learning to analyze it, similar to Tim. But really it's about giving, first of all, to read out what are the top 3 things IT needs to do to move the needle, close that feedback loop, and then give action plans to drill down into those regions. I suppose where we're different from other companies is, instead of a 6 months lead time with some of these surveying and research activities, we get that information back for you in 2 weeks.
Great stuff, Steve. Thanks a for that. And Liz, can I bring you in as well, maybe just to give a bit of your own background?
Absolutely, yes. I'd say we're in the same office actually, so I'd say I'm possibly mute there, Steve. Yeah, so I joined the company earlier this year. So Steve was the solo founder and has built the team in the last year. A lot of attraction between a partnership deal that we have with Dell Technologies. They're reselling Voxify globally as part of their experience management offering. And I'm really helping on the marketing side in terms of building out our direct sales. So a huge amount of customers we've been signing in different industries. So between healthcare in the US, high tech, we're also selling it through financial services. Interestingly, in Ireland, we've also implemented with Gold globally and have helped significantly improve their IT services in a time of a pandemic. So really interesting traction there with lots of different industries.
Brilliant, great stuff. Thanks very much. And Ryan, finally, over to yourself and Valtteri. Do you want to just give us a bit of background to the journey you guys have been on so far?
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Ryan. I was originally born in Germany, half Irish, half German, and plenty of other nationalities there. We are 5 co-founders, and we started this journey now officially 2 years ago, but individually it has started quite a few years before that. My background specifically is in financial mathematics. Always had an interest in encryption, data privacy, data protection since school really, and technology startups too. So whilst working in corporate finance and also a chartered accountant, I have been working on getting to the level of protecting data in the way that it should be, with 4 other amazing co-founders. So all of us have personally been impacted by this many years ago, or only 3 years ago. And looking at data hacks, leaks, why are they still happening? What is the problem? And how, because it's not only us, it's every single individual. It's from individuals to companies, they are impacted massively, whether financially, all the way to businesses failing, to people individually, and mental impacts to financial constraints, and having serious problems that it is causing actually on humanity as such, really. So why the problem has not been solved, and that is where we then from different fields, whether cybersecurity, network security, cryptography, financial mathematics, encryption experts, business operations, all came together and we solved the problem. We are happy to say we did from a mathematical standpoint, and we filed a patent in the field of encryption and cryptography, a more specific enhanced searchable symmetric encryption. And we did that then in stealth mode, as we realized we were onto something major here that would change how we, which is fully encrypted, as the future is encrypted. And we launched our patent, came out of stealth mode, we raised the funds. It was rather difficult, especially when you talk about cryptography and encryption, and you're trying to really get that win over from investors. But in the US, and with a mix of Irish investors and US investors, we raised a 3.3 million seed round. We are now at a stage where we have a team of 17 amazing mathematicians, physicists, software engineers, and are actually in the process of building our product that we are launching now in June. Now, we so what are we doing in the end? We facilitate the processing of fully encrypted data at runtime, where businesses, individuals, enterprises don't have to sacrifice performance anymore over fully encrypted data, where data never has to be decrypted again, in a simple manner. Nobody has to be an encryption expert or cryptographer. We do it with simplicity. So plug and play for, let's say, first year computer science grad being able to use our SDK and set it up, and therefore actually facilitate that for the business to stay in a fully encrypted environment. So if there's a leak or a hack, the data means nothing to anyone. Now, we are now, as a next step, looking at launching at the end of June. We have been approached already since sort of coming out of stealth mode by dozens of massive multinationals, totaling in revenue of over 200 billion worldwide. And it is growing at a very fast rate currently. So we are also actually looking currently at raising a pre-revenue A round. So things are absolutely amazing currently. And what do we want to do? Well, for us, we started this mission actually not looking at a business initially, but actually just solving the problem, realizing we can really make an impact through this. is something that we want to facilitate and give to everyone, not only enterprises, but every individual, from hardware, IoT to databases.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for your folks. I think that gives a good background as to exactly what you're doing. I suppose the ethos of the TechBrew is to to kind of explain to people who may be thinking about starting their own companies how to go about it, or what's the trigger to actually do that. So I'd like to kind of delve into that a little bit with you as well, if that's okay. So Tim, what was it for you that kind of prompted you to leave the comforts of a nice PAYE job with a large enterprise and go on this journey, which isn't quite as safe or in the short term anyway, at least?
That's for sure, Larry. Yeah, so I spent most of my career in the corporate world, and within that, I was an engineer in various forms. And there came a time where actually I was in my comfort zone, and I needed to move out. And when I was in Dell, I took a step and I moved my family to China to set up a supply chain. So if that's not stepping out of a comfort zone, nothing is. But so I did that, and that was fantastic. The best things I ever did. And then when I came back, I didn't want to go back to what I was doing. So I ended up moving to Activo and heading up engineering in a different business, a different sector there for 4 years. And so that was great. It was different, and no regrets there. But then there came a time when I saw the technology developing. I saw the problems I was facing and saw an opportunity to really make an impact there. And so I was weighing it up with my co-founders, and we were thinking, well, I was looking at the pros and cons. And when I was looking at it, I said to myself, well, if I don't do this, I'll always wonder, what if? And then I said to myself, well, if I do it and it doesn't work out, then I just go back and get a real job again. So it has worked out. I'm still here a couple of years later, and yeah, it's big decisions, but when you're doing a startup, the highs are high and the lows are low, and you go through lots of emotions. It can be a lonely place. But putting the right supports in place and getting the right team around me, and with the help of Enterprise Ireland and Dublin and Cork has been fantastic. So it was, I've no regrets. I mean, now I'm selling solutions back into the industries that I worked in. And what we do is we understand the problems that customers are trying to solve, because we've been in there and done it. And it's fantastic. I mean, we've no regrets having done what we did. And now as we support our customers that we did work with, that's working out really well for us, and we're in a great position. So it's a tough road, but it's one that it's really rewarding when you do well, and we're at a good place now as we continue to grow our business.
Absolutely, Tim. Cheers. And Stephen, is it a similar type of thing for yourselves? I know you've got a similar background with Dell, but were the triggers the same, or was there something a little bit different for yourselves?
It was similar in a way, in that I kind of thought ahead to 65 or 70 retirement age, and would I look back with regret, or would I look back with pride? And that was almost the thing that pushed me to actually jump out of the quote Point Break, jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I think things that helped though is, being in Cork, I grew up near where the Rubicon Centre, grew up near CIT. So I was aware that there was startups happening in there, and I met somebody who told me about this program called New Frontiers. So having access to New Frontiers and that program really gave me some comfort that I wasn't just jumping into nothing, that there was some kind of a safety net. And at the same time, I was working with Cork Leo, because I was trying to explore, is this a consultancy business? Is this a scaling software business? And between the two of them, it helped me figure out, okay, this is, kind of high potential startup type territory for Enterprise Ireland. So having those supports around me, I think was critical in terms of being able to leave that safe job. And it also helped with family. So if you've got a good career and you've got a good job and a good salary and benefits and all of that, and you tell your family you're just going to leave that and start out on this idea that most people didn't really understand, it helps to be able to say, oh, I'm doing a course with CIT in learning about innovation or something. It was a bit of a fudge, but still it kind of helped. Yes. A few of those things together helped reassure myself, helped reassure friends and family. And then for the company, it was kind of a way to explore, and it wasn't necessarily shutting the door on them. So I think for me, you know, on top of the pull to do it, and I suppose that drive to go beyond myself and to make an impact beyond just the company, certainly those supports made a big difference for me.
Great. So that's great to hear that the support is there. If you do feel like jumping ship, that there's plenty of supports available to help you with that decision as well. And yourself, Liz, the kind of jumping ship into a startup?
I think this is back to the background question you asked previously. I suppose just to give a sense of where I'm coming from and how I ended up in a startup. I grew up in Kerry in Kilorglin, and I grew up in a startup. My father set up flexible financial services, so first-hand experience of what it's like, what entrepreneurship means, and the impact it can have on the community. And I think that's something we inherited very much, is that sense of impact and giving back. That's something I really lean towards. So I studied social policy originally, and my first job after that was with a startup. It wasn't called a startup back then. It was only 15 years ago, but startup community wasn't really a thing, at least not that I knew of. It was just a tech company that was small and not well known, and no one really knew about it. But that was an interesting experience to see like what a small team can try and do. And they're still operating MX. So fast forward to where I am today. Since then, worked in the startup community, worked in Dogpatch. I set up Scale Ireland, so advocated at a policy level and engaging with ministers, etc., on really showing the importance and the impact that the startups can have at a societal level and economic indeed. But I think my favorite position is being back in a startup again in a commercial role. It's just so exciting, the ups and downs and a few, you know, tense conversations from time to time, absolutely. But that sense of being able to have impact and the direct relationship between what you do and the output. I think some of the people on this call today, you know, might be wondering what does it mean to be in a startup? You might have always worked in a corporate, but there are roles beyond just founding your own company. You can also very much come in as an early employee. Huge range of activities and responsibilities. You can get huge experience that, again, if it doesn't work out, you're probably more employable than you were before going in. So there are lots of different ways that you can get involved in the startup sector. So definitely do consider seeing what you can do, get involved and have conversations with people and your skill set and contribute to any company.
Fantastically, that's a great viewpoint to have on it. Thanks a million. And Ryan, yourself, you mentioned something to me yesterday, which is quite interesting, that you viewed data privacy as a basic human right. That's a kind of an interesting principle. But was that kind of core to you guys deciding to do Valtteri?
Yes, 100%. We were all whether hacked or had data leaks personally, but also new businesses and individuals that were impacted by this, right? And the thing is, so the law is so far behind that even a GDPR is outdated, right? And quite a bit actually. But technology is moving at such a fast rate, right, that the vulnerable, which is us, and businesses are not protected. And in fact, actually, our own private data, what you had in a book, what you had on a letter, is now online. Something that is personal to you, something that is important to you, whether it is financials or something personal belonging to, is now online. So, and it is a basic human right for all of us to be able to have that privacy and protection. And it is something where big, large enterprises, they didn't look at it 20, 30, 40 years ago. They looked at it more from a harvesting data point of view and commercializing, actually using that data to then, in turn, build a product or sell a product and make a revenue. But data is not only an asset, it is a toxic asset. It's actually a toxic asset, not only in oil. But so yes, it is a fundamental human right. We believe so, and we think so, and that is how we started this. Because the future is encrypted, and it has to happen at some stage. So, and that's where we came in.
Very good. That's a really powerful core principle to build a company out from, Ryan. So thanks for that. So look, we've only a few minutes left here, folks. So we had a question here, and just to encourage everybody that's listening in today. So put your questions into the Q&A function if you have any questions, and we'll try and bring them to the panelists here. But maybe just to kind of wrap up, Tim, as you look to 2022, maybe a little bit about the plans that Workflow have for. You've taken on your seed round and you're kind of going to go into a growth phase, and maybe a little bit about what would it mean. What does it mean to you to get to this stage as being a finalist for the Tech Startup of the Year, or even to go ahead and win Tech Startup of the Year?
Yeah, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, it's an honor for us. And I suppose it's we always talk to customers and clients about how good we are and how good our product is. And it's great. And I mean, I've got a lot of feedback from our customers say, fantastic, well done. And it's like an endorsement for them to see that, to say, well, we're working with a really good company, shortlisted and one of the finalists. So, and also for our team, I've a team of software developers here in India. They're delighted. I mean, they're logged in here and watching it, and like we engage our team. We have a small team of 10. We are growing it, so they're very much engaged with what we do and part of everything we do. So that's really important for us as we grow into next year with our seed round, and our plan is we have 10 people. We're going to grow to 20 in next year. We're planning to grow to 50 in 3 years. So the investment is primarily for resources. So we need to bring on software developers, marketing, project managers, and sales. So we have a presence in Asia, in South America, and we're starting our first project next year in the US. So we will next year be scaling and growing in those markets. And we've come through, I suppose COVID is an unknown, and has impacted us, and that's the uncertainty, particularly with the new wave that's coming out. So like, we can't travel. We've had to pivot and change our business. So we used to have a presence on every customer site. We don't anymore. We've done our China and Brazil projects. We do them all remotely now. So we've become really effective in that. So we've come out of it, despite the fact that it nearly crippled us at the beginning, but we come out with a better company, which is why we have the investors on board now. So we're excited about the future, but there's so much uncertainty out there, but we feel that we'll come out better for it, and we have a good, strong, resilient team, and we're really looking forward to growing the business.
Fantastic, Tim. Thanks for that. And Stephen, same for yourselves. What does 2022 hold, and what would it mean to you firstly to get to the finalists, or to go ahead and win this category?
So I think firstly, I think within about a week of starting at New Frontiers, I was sitting at a table. I was invited by one of the attendees who eventually won Enterprise of the Year. So I was sat at the IT at Cork Awards in the company of an enterprise. I'd previously been there, at the Dell table. So I could see how important that competition was to enterprises, never mind startups. But at the same time, I was there with a couple of my contemporaries from New Frontiers who were, bidding to win it and competing. And I could see how disappointed they were if they didn't get the top slot. So, that this has been on my mind, I suppose, for 3 years, and it's as high an accolade, I think, as a startup can get, particularly one selling into enterprise in Cork. As regards plans for next year, so one thing that I'm kind of minded to consider is success, and what does that mean? So part of what we do is we measure our customers' success. So, and our mission is to revolutionize how those customers make decisions. So if they make better decisions, they will do better as companies, and that will have knock-on impacts on how those companies perform. So our success is measured through the impact we can make on those companies. So for us, it's really, success is growing the number of companies that we can engage with, that we can sell to ultimately, and then being able to see through that process of offering what we offer, that we will win together with them.
Fantastic. And Liz, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I might add, just in terms of the fundraising, that's often a metric that's used, for startups of how much money has been raised. But actually, for us in Voxify, we held off on raising around earlier this year, and we focused on revenue growth instead. And happily, that has stood us well. So one measure of success might be doing a Series A and raising money, but another may be actually really closing lots of deals and conversations that we're having, and being able to continue to grow the team and to grow the company with money that's coming in through that revenue. So, you know, it might go one direction or the other. So that'll be interesting to see probably Q2 of next year.
Fantastic, thanks, Liz. And finally, Ryan, yourself, what are the plans for Valtteri for 2022?
The plans are to grow the team. We are looking at growing our team to 25 to 35 over the next year. Also in Brazil, as we already have a base there, as well as in the UK and in Ireland. From a product point of view, we're looking at launching our product in June, and we are ahead of target currently, which is absolutely amazing to see. And again, the team is in a key focus here, right? Now, from a closing deals perspective, customer perspective, we're looking at being able to close 10 to 20 deals with companies that we already are in discussions with, and that only accelerating, as well as starting the fundraising for our A round. And the reason being is we are looking at scaling Valtteri quick to be able to make our technology accessible to as many businesses and enterprises as possible, as quickly as possible. And for that, we need a larger team, more people that will be able to support and grow with Valtteri. So that is going to be the goal. In terms of what it would mean for us, some of us have worked in stealth mode for 8 years in a garage or in an attic, right? 8, 6, 4 years working over extremely complex mathematics, and that to actually not, as I mentioned earlier, to make a business out of it, but actually it was all about solving that problem. And now we can do that. We actually can bring it to businesses, and we also will be aiming at making part of it open source for the individuals, the public in the future, because again, as a human right, everyone should have access to it. So it would mean a lot to us. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. And look, thanks everybody. We'll wrap things up with that. Congratulations to you, and it's very exciting to hear the plans for the future. I'm sure that there's everyone's going to be keeping a close eye on what the 3 companies do in 2022, and all the best to you. Thanks, million. So with that, I just might hand you back over to Donna Kiernan to introduce the next section there.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you all. I always love hearing the stories how people started. It always takes great courage, great bravery to make that jump. And what many people don't realize, it doesn't end there. That bravery, that courage has to continue in all sort of the bumps and the starts, and the ups and downs, as Tim mentioned there, can be extreme. So it's great, and well done to everyone there, and best luck on the upcoming the final announcement. At this point, I'm going to hand over to DC, who's going to chair the discussion on the tech scale-up of the year. So, DC, over to you.
Thanks, Donna. A capable MC as always. Oh, sorry. Hope everybody can hear me. Fantastic to hear about the startup talent in Cork, and as we've seen, a great pipeline going forward, you know, for the companies of the future. I was delighted to be asked to chair the judging panel for the Tech Scale-Up of the Year. Tech Scale-Up of the Year covers the companies who, I guess, have gotten over the first hurdles in terms of their business, only to realize that there's a whole different set of slightly higher hurdles waiting for them just behind them. But we've got 3 amazing founders today to talk to. I suppose just the bit of housekeeping. This was far from a one-man show. I just sat back and let very much smarter people than me engage with the team. So I'd like to thank my fellow judges, Eamon Curtin, Aoife O'Brien, Tyler Patterson, and our illustrious MC, Donna Kiernan, for their input and the interactions we've had in talking to these 3 startups. So I'd like to invite our 3 finalists in the Tech Scale-Up of the Year category. They would be Jane Ronayne from Talivest, Conor Lydon from Trust App, and Michael Elliott from Oversea to join us now on the panel. And Michael? Michael, as the most handsome, we couldn't start without you, you know? Yeah, I know, I'm a bluffer. Look, 3 very, very interesting scale-ups in 3 kind of completely different sectors, which I think is great. It just shows the variety of scale-ups coming out of Cork. I think, you know, we might so that we can contrast between the startups and scale-ups. I might steal a few of Larry's questions, but we might start obviously by asking the different startups to introduce themselves. Conor, I might start with you and Trust App. You might tell us a little bit about Trust App and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, DC. So Trust App is a transaction platform, and it's specifically designed for people or businesses that are transacting with untrusted parties. So essentially other people or other businesses that they don't know and can't trust. And why can't they trust them? It's usually because in any transaction between 2 people or 2 businesses, money is half of it, and the other half is that a product has to be delivered or a service has to be completed. And traditionally, the only options available to people were to use payment platforms, and that meant that there was a bit of a breakdown between, say, a product being shipped or the money being paid. So what we've created is a Milestone-based transaction platform, and we manage the full process from end to end. So typically, our users would be individuals at the moment from like buy and sell marketplaces. So everybody be familiar with the likes of Done Deal in Ireland. It's those types of transactions if you're buying a phone or a watch or a car or an animal. And we would manage the full transaction from start to finish. So our growth this year has largely been down to some of the partnerships we've established with those types of marketplaces all over the world, really. So that's a quick run through of what we're doing.
Okay. Michael, I might go to you next. Oversea, nice branding there. Always good to get the branding in. You might give us an overview of Oversea and what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. So Oversea is effectively a collaboration tool for monitoring remote operations. So my background is facilities management. I was in the security industry. And what I noticed in facilities management or outsourcing is that you find companies like I used to have in big venues. So if you think of an airport or if you think of a stadium like the Aviva, you'll go from having 50 full-time employees on a rugby match to 2,500 people for 10 days a year. So how do you actually know what those people are doing within the operation? Now, as I said, we focused in high footfall venues, so they would be stadiums, airports, shopping centers, all the places that pretty much closed during the pandemic. And what came out of all of that for us was that we suddenly realized that management were not considered essential workers, but the operators were: cleaners, security guards, maintenance people. And of course, management had no view, real-time view of what these guys were doing, but we did. And we also found out that what was happening from an insurance point of view, that the risk profile suddenly absolutely increased immensely because, again, there was no management function. And what's actually happened for us during the last year is we've suddenly found that insurers are really interested in the data that we're seeing, which is being able to look at the behaviors of operators in venues in order to be able to reduce insurance premiums. So that's pretty much an introduction of Oversea, DC.
Excellent. Definitely going to come back to you on the pivot learnings there. And last but not least, Jane Ronayne from Talivest. Tell us all about Talivest.
Thank you, DC, and good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's enjoying the doom and gloom in Cork, if you're in Cork. Lovely to be on the panel, so thank you for that. Just a kind of a quick introduction. I'm Jane. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Talivest. And basically what we do is that we provide the workforce with a voice, and we provide technology to the organization to listen and to act. And we do this by measuring the entire employee experience from the minute you start in an organization to the minute you leave the organization. And we're able to really give action points back to the organization to tell them why churn is happening, how to improve retention, when energy levels are low, how their culture is doing. So we really work with organizations to make sure that their workforce is as productive and as engaged as possible. We've had a very interesting year, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to me on. The people market has completely changed. And we're very fortunate that we were able to act fast. So we've had a very successful year, and we're excited for 2022 with our new growth. But we have customers ranging from Intel to Intane to construction companies all around the world. So we are extremely excited about the next couple of months, but delighted to be a part of the panel. So that's just a quick introduction of who we are and what we do.
Excellent. So I was intrigued there listening to the 3 previous startups. I thought one of the most interesting things was that whole idea of like what was the trigger in getting started. And I know for some of you that might feel like centuries away. But Connor, it'd be very interesting to hear like why Trust App? Why not a job in the bank, or why not a job with PayPal or somewhere like that? What was the onus, to actually kick off Trust App?
Yeah, well, I suppose when I was, so I graduated from engineering in UCC, and the idea behind Trust App came from just personal experiences I was facing myself. So I was traveling over and back to watch football matches in the UK, and like trying to get tickets is that exact kind of problem I described, where you'd find somebody selling tickets, but they'd nearly always demand to be paid up front. And if you paid them, are they going to send you what they were supposed to send you? And they're not going to send you it without being paid. So it's that kind of classic chicken and egg scenario, really. And different kinds of transactions like that I would have been involved in especially around kind of final year in engineering. I kind of felt, there must be a better way of doing all this. And I then went with that idea onto the Ignite program in UCC. And around that time, I was weighing up the option of like a grad program, as you said, or, a couple of different options there, and should I do this or should I do the grad program first and come back to it? But I'm happy I did it in the order I did, and that would be kind of my advice to anyone else as well, would be, especially for me, when I was just finished being a student, it wasn't really a big change to go to not making any money at the start of a startup. I didn't really have to adapt at all, whereas it might have been a bit more difficult to come back from earning a bit of money on a grad program and trying to do it then. So yeah, luckily it worked out in the end.
And for any day now, Trust App will be launching its grad program, I'd imagine, so the circle is complete,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Michael, you mentioned earlier, the world of facilities management, very big industry, a lot of money in it, why in God's name wouldn't you have a nice desk job in there somewhere, instead of going down the hard and dirty road of doing a startup? How did Oversea come to be?
I suppose, like everything, it comes through your experiences. And one of the things that I learned very, very quickly is that when you work in facilities management, when you're working with cleaners or security people, some people have a very short view of who those people are. And in fact, I've worked with security guys that have been bank managers. I've worked with cleaners that have been head teachers. There's an awful lot of experience in these roles, but they were never given the tools. And even today, when we go and speak to facilities management companies, they'll say things like, "Oh, I don't know whether I would feel good giving a cleaner a mobile phone." And you're kind of like, really? What? Where are we today? And I think that really was my drive, was that I saw a workforce so much capable of doing more if they were given the right insights, the right resources to do so. And that really was what drove me.
Interesting. Jane, Talivest, I mean, when you probably started it years ago, this sort of employee engagement wasn't very commonplace. So like, what was it way back then that made you think this is something worth dedicating time and effort to?
Well, I think similar to Connor, I originally started this when I was a student and I was used to being broke, so I didn't really have much to lose. But this started as a yearbook, like way back when in my final year. And again, it started because I wanted a yearbook, but I wanted it done in a way that didn't entail me to spend lots of energy trying to do it the manual way. And I am a big believer in following your gut and looking at what's out there and looking at what's going on within your friendship groups. And I brought the company from being a yearbook company to then an alumni relations company called Connect Again. And then again, seeing that the work market was changing, that people were no longer looking at their jobs as a job for life anymore. It was a completely set of different guidelines and way to, I guess, have that professional kind of career piece. You know, it was changing. And I'm very passionate about analytics. I think it's can help organizations really solve a lot of problems. I think behind any organization is an even better team. And I think your team are absolutely integral to the success of your organization. So I got really excited with Taliban, seeing where the market is going, seeing the importance of really tracking what motivates and encourages your people. Now, of course, the easy job, I'm sure, as my parents would have in many ways would have liked me to have taken. And I remember it was a job at Dropbox I was offered years ago, and it would have been the easy solution. But I think when you're driven and when you see that there's a problem, it's just that itch that you just got to scratch. You're on mute again, DC.
I'm on mute again, yeah. Just before I move on to the next question, just to say to everybody watching, if you have any questions that you'd like me to ask the panel, you can throw them into the Q&A section in Zoom. They'll answer questions about anything, except Connor doesn't answer any questions about stuff that goes on after midnight. Guys, very interested to know, I mean, you know, let's be positive, but the last 18 months has definitely probably been the most challenging time in recent history, in particular for business, not to mind say being in a scale-up or a startup. Just be interested to kind of get a quick overview of, say, you know, since COVID kicked off, the effect that it maybe had on your business, if any. You know, has it changed things for you? Has it changed your plans? Just curious, you know, kind of what that last probably 12 months in particular has been like for you. Jane, we might start with you this time, just for the sake of it.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned earlier, we were quite fortunate. We're in a really interesting marketplace. So for us, there was bundles of opportunity. And I think as a founder, I think naturally, organically, we kind of tend to be quite more optimistic, because I think, again, in this lifestyle, there's so many things that can get you down. You have to try and look for the positivity somewhere. But that being said, no, it was hard. We went from having, you know, a team of 12 in Dublin to all of a sudden having a team spread out, you know, between Europe. And that was very difficult to try and manage that. But again, we persevered through it. But again, it's still kind of a work in progress. We're still trying to figure out, do we go back and get an office? How do we make sure that our team feel very motivated and supported? I think it's very much going with the flow type of approach that we've taken. But again, you know, I am very lucky, and we are very fortunate that we have strived throughout COVID in many ways. It was the making of the company. But again, as I said, we're kind of just going with the flow as much as we can and trying to make sure we have all the right measures in place for the next phase.
Michael, you mentioned the fact that, you know, COVID obviously had a big impact on maybe your original target customer, but, you know, you then found a new customer base and a pivot. Would you tell us a little bit about that, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it really hit us pretty hard, because we had literally brought in a sales team and no one was buying. You know, stadiums are shut down. There's no spectators. Shopping centers are empty. It just overnight just completely stopped everything that we were doing. And you know, it forces you to look at yourself and go, what am I going to do? You know, giving up is not an option. It simply, you know, isn't on the table. And you just have to, you know, be calm is the first thing I'd say. With everything that's going on, just try and calmly think, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And talk. You know, and we were very, very fortunate that we've got a good investor base. And we spoke to lots of our investors about, you know, their ideas and what they came to. But insurance was something that we were already doing, but we didn't recognize the value in it in ourselves. And it's when we started to think, well, what is going well? Where might there be an opportunity? And we started to explore it. And then we had to throw everything in there. You know, if you're going to do it, you have to go all in. You can't half in and half out. And that's what we did. And fortunately for us, it was successful. We now have Aon, Marsh as the world's largest insurance brokers as partners, Sompo, Zurich, QBE, Hitachi Vantara have now taken us as the front end for their insurance offering. So it's very, very quickly happened to us. Now, of course, when things like that happen real quick and you're not geared up for it, that brings you a complete new problem, because it's suddenly like, I've got all these global companies that are really excited, and I've got to service them. So once again, it brings in a complete new new dynamic. But for us, the second part of your question, what have we done? We decided that we were going to raise another round of funding, but in a strategic way, so that we were going to find a strategic partner, someone that had a need for our product, that they could roll it out internationally at the same time, as opposed to just bringing in money. So they would both be a customer and a strategic partner. And that's what we're in the middle of right now.
Interesting. Connor, for you guys, like I have a recollection, you know, you were kind of scaling at kind of serious velocity, kind of as COVID was kicking off. You know, I suppose 2020 was probably very much year. I mean, in terms of practicalities, like hiring staff and everything else, like what sort of an impact has COVID had on, say, you know, your ability to scale? Has it sped it up, slowed it down, you know, or has it been business as usual?
I think of the two examples there, probably more comparable to Jane's situation. You know, we were obviously very fortunate that COVID, one of the things that happened as a result of it was just a kind of an acceleration of digital adoption. So more people that are more familiar with using digital products now than they would have been. I think I saw some stats somewhere that it probably accelerated like 10 years in 2020. And so that in turn helped us in that our kind of customer base was or our target market was bigger than it would have been previously. As well as that, our main kind of route to market is via those existing marketplaces, which is a very, you know, traditionally would have been very much a cash in hand business that people didn't really want to do anymore either. So those marketplaces knew that they had to act and start facilitating transactions online, and the timing was really good. So that worked out really well for us. But in terms of actually growing the team, I think the biggest thing was that there would have been a little bit of anxiety there probably previously about kind of having a big remote team, or you know, having people scattered all over the place. And I think if anything, COVID taught us that it's definitely workable, and that you know that can be done now. So we wouldn't be as reliant on, say, building a team necessarily in the same office as we would have been previously. And what that does then is it opens up the size of the talent pool that you're going after as well, because you know, they could be based anywhere. And so yeah, that was one thing. I think it was a learning curve, but it you know, you were forced to work remotely for a while, and then it showed us that actually it's not all that bad at all, and it can have a lot of benefits.
Excellent. Actually, I should mention at this stage, I should let everybody in the audience guess. One of our panelists is coming to us from the UK, and one of our panelists is coming to us from the USA. I won't tell you who, you can just guess and imagine. Michael, in terms of, say, you know, the IT at Cork Awards and stuff like that, kind of, you know, I guess I'm interested in maybe your plans for next year, and, you know, kind of what winning would mean for you guys as well, you know, as a now honorary Cork man, you know, like just curious about plans for next year, really.
Yeah, I think pretty much most of our plans for, obviously we're growing and we're scaling, but one of the things that we really want to look at is how do we get a much better employee experience? How do we really provide what our workers are looking for? What is it that they want? Because I think throughout this whole pandemic, that there's been a lot of things that we took for granted, and there's been a lot of things that, you know, haven't worked, some things that have worked. So I think really from overseas point of view, we really want to nail what our work-life culture is going to be, and we want to bring the staff, the workforce in as part of that whole decision making. If we are going into new offices, what are those offices for? How do you want those offices built? What are they going to be used, and how frequently? You know, when it comes to their working week, what are you doing within that week? What are the side projects, and how are we going to manage that? So I think really what we're looking for is that Cork is an amazing place with some massive multinationals, and then there's the sort of startups and scale-ups like we are. And we have got to be ahead of our game if we're going to attract and retain good talent. So for us, really, for 2020, as we're obviously going to be scaling, growing, and going international, we have a real focus, laser focus on how do we become one of the best employers in Cork.
Excellent. Connor, yourself, like what does next year bring, and what would winning the award mean to you guys?
Well, it's always great to be involved in any kind of awards, especially, you know, to get that kind of recognition. In the space we're in, we're essentially telling people and businesses that they don't have to trust each other, but why should they trust us? And these kind of being involved in these processes definitely does help the brand, and like the kind of partnerships we're forming as well. That's part of it. Next year will be, you know, we're hoping we'll raise our Series A next year, if everything goes to plan, and you know that will mean probably doubling the size of the team again. So you know, it could be a very exciting year if everything falls into place. We've a lot more partnerships coming online in terms of those marketplaces I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's very exciting. I think, you know, we've already kind of, you know, really increased the size of the team this year, and that took a bit of time to settle in, and I think everyone's a lot more comfortable with that change from going from, you know, a couple of people around the office to, you know, 35 people now that we have, and doubling that again would have been a scary thought maybe last year, but I think we're well prepared for that now, and looking forward to next year. Excellent.
Jane, 2022, what does 2022 mean for Taliban?
It's a big year. So we recently just raised a round of funding, and the way I like to look at 2021, it was a year of learning and really trying to, again, implement all the learnings into our strategy for 2022. So we are doubling the size of the team, which we've already started, which is very exciting. We've just launched a new product called the Employee Energy Model, which will be launched in early January. And that's something that we're very, very excited about as well. And then it's really focusing on landing and expanding a lot of our customer bases. So we have a lot of different large enterprises. So it's working with them, expanding our contacts out with them, but it's really just about growth and that revenue piece. What this would mean to Taliban and myself personally, I started my journey in the startup world years ago in Ignite, really similar to Connor, and it brought me to the most amazing places around the world. And now I'm right back in Cork, and it's an amazing place to be, and I'm extremely excited to be back here, but representing Cork to both our customers and to my team. I'm the only Cork person on the team, funnily enough, out of a team of 12. So for me, I'm very proud to have our company headquartered in Cork, and just to actually fly that flag, it'd be a very, very proud moment for me. And I know the rest of the team would be as well, as they all wish they were from Cork, because they all love it when they're down here.
Good. Look, that's all the time we have. My last question, I don't have time to ask you, which is, when you win your trophy, where in the house will you keep it? We'll just have to leave that one to the imagination. Thank you so much for your input. Looking forward to seeing which one of the three of you walks away with the Golden Globe and makes the inevitable movie about your startup success. At that, I'll pass back to Donna to close off the proceedings. But thank you so much for your time this evening. It's very generous of you.
Thanks, DC.
Donna? Thanks.
Thank you, DC. Thank you all. And thank you to all the sort of participants on the session this evening. So look, if anything, this was at least building a community and letting all the sort of the startups know each other, that it's a shared journey. And kind of the ups and downs that people face on everyday business, there's good days and there are bad days, but kind of lots of other people are feeling the same. And at least there's people they can reach out to the community. It's great to hear the various accelerator programs, startup programs mentioned in this as well, between the Ignite, sort of the New Frontiers, the international, was the ISA with the Cork Big. And it's good to hear them all mentioned here, and all the various supports for companies starting and growing in the region. Best of luck to all the panelists. I know you'll be all looking out sort of for that announcement, coming up next week. But other than that, thank you everyone for attending this evening.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay, take care.